The problem you've got with Stevie is that he hasn't managed in the Championship, first and foremost, which is a problem because it's a difficult league.
Wasn't a problem for Bielsa. Hasn't been a problem for Vincent Kompany.
No, that's true. That's true. But if you are in charge of Leeds, if you're asking me, well, I'd be for looking for somebody who knows how to get out of the Championship. I said I'd have kept Sam. He'd get you out. I'd have kept Sam.
There's an argument that he would.
It's not about whether another manager, even Bo, I mean, Bow's done a bit in the Championship, I think, lower end. I think he was in the Championship for a season, so he's got a bit more experience.
Birmingham. Oh, he was telling us how he would do it.
I know, I listened
terms.
actually. Yeah, in terms of on the front foot going after teams, and I think that's the way with the squad they got in the Championship. That's going to be their way.
Yeah.
I think that I'd be personally looking for someone who's been there and done it to get them back ASAP, because if you don't come back first time, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
you've got a mountain to climb because you're going to lose one or two. You might keep the majority of that squad, I think, together.
They've got money. The counterpoint to that argument is
you mean a parachute payment?
They've got parachute payments, but they've also got money. So they're not a football club that's just they're going to change ownership to the people that own the 49ers. The guys that own the 49ers have got plenty of money. Right? So they're not going to be in a situation where they can't allow themselves a degree of latitude about when they get promoted. Of course, they don't want to wait a season if they don't have to, but it's not going to send Leeds into a tailspin economically by the very nature of their ownership if they don't get promoted first season round. So that kind of knocks that argument a little bit back off its axis. Gerrard, to me, I don't see why he couldn't do the job if the lessons that he needed to have learned have been learned. If he could sit in front of a chairman and walk him through what it is that he would bring to this football club and what he's learned from the lessons that he's had previously and could then deploy them into channeling. Steven Gerrard isn't going to do an interview with the media or a conversation where he says he can't get Leeds United promoted if he's talking about Leeds United, because that would be an exercise in silliness, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And no one would employ. No, I don't think I can.
Yeah.
So he's going to say...
And Lee Boyer was the same yesterday.
Absolutely. Now, whether they can or whether they can't, that's a different discussion. But when you're sitting down with them and you've got a proper, focused person speaking to them and asking them to walk through what it is that they would do, how they would do it, what they would change, what lessons they've learnt from the experiences they've had before, what made them successful at Rangers, what made them unsuccessful at Aston Villa. And then you hear what they have to say, and then only then, put aside the fact he was an outstanding footballer, put aside that the backstory of Rangers was a good one, predominantly, put aside the failures at Aston Villa, just look at the fella in the rounds and get him to walk you through how he does it and get him to own it and get him to really double down on the fact that he's not Steven Gerrard, elite footballer, he's manager looking for a gig.
Could you envisage that situation where you're on one side of the table, Simon, and Gerrard on the other, and you're the owner of Leeds United? Can you envisage that you'd give him the job?
Well, depends what he says. Depends what he says. I think I was underwhelmed by him at Rangers, and I was one of the few voices that said I don't think it's a bad move for him. A bad move to go to Villa. He's going to come a cropper there, and he duly did. But during the time he was a cropper there, I got more of the memo as to the reasons why people might employ him, because he comes into the room with presence. But that presence was unwound by a lack of football nous in management terms.
I think from a footballing perspective, if you look at it purely on that, Stevie wants to play front foot and press. You know, that type of success at Rangers doing it. And at Villa at times they didn't, and then he was caught in between because he was trying to stay in matches or win. You know, it went a bit wrong. But his next job needs to be a team where he can play that way and not have to be. So, for example, if Leeds had just stayed in the Premier League by the skin of their teeth,
he'd be on the back foot.
I don't think going in there and wanting to play the front foot football he does would be ideal. They're going to get hammered. You know, I know Bo was talking about Leeds always having a go. I think
he'll have a toe.
In the Championship, yes, they should go that way. But that Leeds squad right now couldn't do that in the Premier League. So Stevie's philosophy suits what Leeds got to do next season, and Lee Bowyer's.
Yeah, right.
I think that is his philosophy. I mean, you're comparing his philosophy at Rangers, which is a two-horse league where he got them going, and they're going to play in 90% of the games they play in, with the exception of Celtic, on the front foot. In the Premier League, he was never, unless he went and managed one of the top four clubs, never going to play the bulk of games on anything other than what he did. So that shows a lack of tactical nous. It's all well having the ability to be able to, I want to play on the front foot.
Indeed, but the initial success he had at Villa when he went in and got a good response and some results and the fans behind him was up on the front foot.